85,000 Real Madrid fans were praying for him to fail. Football's most difficult stadium to play in was the scene of a face-off between a star-studded new generation of stars and a broken Barcelona team, barely clinging to hope. A teenager who had a math test to worry about next week was about to face a team of World Cup winners and national team captains. He couldn't be more outmatched, yet despite having zero Clásico experience, he had zero fear. By the time the match was over, not only did he score a goal, but he also silenced all 85,000 fans as he left them speechless with his performance. This is the story of how a skinny teenager resurrected one of Spain's greatest clubs, and while destroying another. On October 2021, Barcelona and its fans witnessed the unthinkable. Inter Milan's victory over Victoria Plzen, combined with yet another defeat to Bayern Munich, sealed the Blaugrana's relegation to the Europa League for the first time in almost 2 decades. That fall felt surreal. The last time Barcelona had been in that competition was way back in 2001, when it was still called the UEFA Cup. Messi hadn't even debuted yet, and Ronaldinho had just arrived in Paris from Brazil. To a fanbase raised on a decade and a half of domestic dominance and European trophies, it felt as though all the glory had been undone overnight. But what unfolded on that October night was only a symptom of something far more corrosive. Barcelona's collapse was not just about poor performances on the pitch, it was a slow, calculated undoing from the very top. Their fall from grace was the product of a management that had been reckless for years. When news broke that the club's debt had spiraled into 10 figures, all eyes turned to Josep Bartomeu. How could the president of one of the richest clubs in the world fail to see the cracks forming beneath his own empire? Between 2018 and 2023, Barcelona boasted one of the highest wage bills in Europe, but delivered just 2 league titles and no European crown. For a club that had defined excellence for over a decade, that return was more than disappointing, it was negligent. Fans believed that merchandising, global appeal and broadcast rights would keep Barca untouchable, but the truth was darker. Even a club as mighty as Barcelona could sink if its finances were mismanaged. The alarm bells should have rung in August 2017. Just 19 days after PSG unveiled Neymar in Paris, Barcelona introduced his supposed heir, Ousmane Dembélé. The price was staggering, €105 million for a 20-year-old winger. At the time, nobody questioned it. With over 30 goal contributions for Dortmund the previous season and a Golden Boy runner-up medal, Dembélé seemed like a bargain. But Barcelona didn't stop there. A La Liga title and Copa del Rey weren't enough to numb the pain of their heartbreaking Champions League exit at the hands of Roma. The board doubled down, paying €135 million for Liverpool's Philippe Coutinho, and a season later, splurging over €120 million on Antoine Griezmann. Yet none of these moves gave the returns the club desperately needed. Dembélé spent more time on the treatment table than on the pitch. Coutinho averaged a goal every 236 minutes. Griezmann never stayed long enough to leave a lasting mark. The spending spree was only half the story. The wage bill told the rest. Barcelona were handing out contracts that dwarfed their earnings. Dembélé earned €250,000 per week. Sergio Busquets took home €400,000. Luis Suarez pocketed over €500,000, while Messi, still the beating heart of the club, cost them a staggering €1.5 million every single week. To put that in perspective, winning La Liga earned them just under €60 million in prize money, while a team finishing 17th in the Premier League could earn almost double that amount in television revenue. The club was a financial time bomb, and the fuse was burning in plain sight. For years, Messi's genius masked the growing rot. Even as world-class players left and were replaced by cheaper, less reliable signings, the Argentine continued to carry the team on his shoulders, churning out goals and dragging them to victories that made the cracks less visible. But when Messi finally departed in 2021, the illusion shattered. The fragile model, long held together by his brilliance, collapsed under its own weight. In their first season without him, Barcelona couldn't even make it out of the Champions League group stage, an outcome that, by Real Madrid's standards, bordered on blasphemy. That Europa League humiliation was not just a bad season, it was the climax of years of reckless decisions and proof that Barcelona's empire, built on unsustainable spending and one man's genius, had finally imploded. But as the club's hierarchy scrambled to pick up the pieces, another question lingered. How had they sunk so much into big money signings and seen so little in return? That obsession with expensive imports who couldn't deliver had been eating away at the club long before Messi's departure, and it all began with the €105 million winger who was supposed to replace Neymar and instead became the symbol of Barcelona's unravelling, Ousmane Dembélé. While Barcelona were reeling from the humiliation of Europa League football, their eternal rivals were basking in the glow of their own renaissance. Real Madrid didn't just win, they dominated, securing their 14th Champions League and 35th La Liga title in 2022. And the Madridistas' celebrations didn't stop in Paris. 4 months later, the Ballon d'Or went to Karim Benzema. For Barcelona fans, that award cut especially deep. The last man to win it was Messi. Seeing the golden ball lifted by a Madrid striker felt like their fiercest rivals had stolen not just the silverware, but their identity as Spain's footballing capital. For the first time in over a decade, the pinnacle of Spanish football wasn't in Catalonia. It had shifted, unmistakably, to Madrid, and the gap wasn't just in trophies. Between December 2019 and October 2022, the two giants clashed 8 times. Barcelona scraped just 1 win and 1 draw. On the other 6 occasions, they were outmuscled, outplayed and outclassed. That's the problem that gnawed at Barcelona fans. It wasn't only their decline, it was having to watch their sworn enemy thrive while they suffered. Every Clásico defeat was another dagger. The tension rose as Madrid began strengthening an already stacked squad. Eduardo Camavinga and David Alaba arrived in 2022. The following summer, Aurélien Tchouaméni and Antonio Rudiger joined, adding both youth and experience. While Barca clung to free agents and La Masia kids, Madrid built a squad that seemed poised to dominate the next decade. The climax came in the summer of 2023, when Florentino Perez unveiled his most expensive signing yet, Jude Bellingham. At €103 million, more than what Madrid had paid for Hazard, Bale, or even Ronaldo, the 21-year-old England midfielder became their crown jewel. To Barcelona supporters, it felt like the final insult. Madrid investing in the future while they scrambled for bargains. And that's where the contrast became unbearable. Between 2021 and 2024, Barcelona's total spend barely topped €200 million, mostly funded by player sales. Their headline signing, a Premier League striker plucked from a relegation-threatened side. If they weren't promoting La Masia graduates, they were raiding the free agent market for veterans past their prime. It wasn't a strategy, it was survival. The new problem was clear. Barcelona was not just losing on the pitch, they were also losing the transfer war. The gulf in quality and ambition between the two clubs had never felt wider, and it seemed destined to stay that way. But in the midst of that despair, a spark of hope appeared from La Masia, a 16-year-old boy who refused to play by the script of decline. His name was Lamine Yamal. On April 29, 2023, it seemed like Barca were playing another regular La Liga game where they were 4 goals up, and Xavi Hernandez was already thinking about the next game. But for one player, he could never forget that day. In the 83rd minute, Gavi was taken off, and a teenage boy wearing number 41 replaced him. He barely played 10 minutes of football, but he was already in the history books. At 15 years, 9 months, and 16 days old, Lamine Yamal became the youngest player ever to debut for the FC Barcelona first team in La Liga since Ansu Fati, who was over 16 at the time of his debut. In the mere 7 minutes he was on the field, he showed a glimpse of the potential he had. A silky smooth piece of skill saw him rob a defender, and his left-footed shot forced a brilliant save from the Betis keeper, Rui Silva. Then, he delivered a breathtaking, chipped pass over the defence that Ousmane Dembélé just couldn't convert. The sheer audacity, the effortless confidence, all this coming from a kid who should be worried about math, homework and a crush in English class. The Barcelona staff were not oblivious to what they had witnessed. Xavi knew he had a diamond in the rough. He just had to polish it. And that late into the season, the teenage sensation could only look forward to next season. During the pre-season, Xavi ensured that Yamal was training regularly with the first team. The world was not yet ready for the refined and talented youngster Yamal was becoming. Having made his debut, the next thing on his checklist was a first goal. It came on October 8, 2023, in an away match against Granada. Barca was trailing 2-0. The team needed a spark, a hero. Who stepped up? The teenager. In the 73rd minute, a scramble in the box saw the ball pop out to Yamal, and he coolly slotted it home. His first professional goal for the club. And with that strike, another historical marker was laid down. Yamal became the youngest goalscorer in La Liga history, aged 16 years and 87 days, snatching the record from Fabrice Olinga's grasp. He also became Barca's youngest ever league goalscorer, surpassing Ansu Fati again. But a month ago, he had broken another record. During the September international break, we didn't just earn his first call-up with the Spanish national team. He got his first cap against Georgia and became the youngest Spaniard yet to have this honour. And his goal made the moment even more memorable. Lamine Yamal had become the face of youthful talent and exuberance. There was no way he could be as good as he was and stay on the bench. As young as he was, and still lacking the physicality to face stronger defenders, he utilised his skill and speed to evade tackles and heavy contact. Yamal was as smart as he was skillful. By the end of the 2023 to 2024 season, he had 50 appearances and 16 goal contributions. Mind you, he was still 16 at the time. And with the type of season he had, there was no way Spain was going to the Euros without him. And they were glad they had made this decision, as it proved to be a wise one. He had a goal contribution in 5 of the 7 games Spain played, and the 1 goal he scored was one of the best in the tournament. Despite putting in convincing performances game after game, people still wondered if he could reach the peak of his potential and make Barca great again. There was no doubt that Lamine Yamal had big shoes to fill. The last time a left-footed right winger played in a Barcelona shirt, he lit up the world with his football magic. And although Lamine Yamal isn't Lionel Messi or anywhere remotely close yet, he has still given the world plenty of reasons to be excited watching him play. And nothing would be more thrilling than seeing the youngster at his best against one of the most formidable teams in La Liga. It was Friday, Saturday, 26th October. Barcelona sat at the top of La Liga, just a few points ahead of Madrid. Both teams wanted to win badly. Hansi Flick wanted to increase the distance between him and Ancelotti's men. For Don Carlo, being second on the table was bad enough. This was a chance to gain on their rivals, so he knew they had to take it. Things looked like they were going to go in Madrid's favour. Barcelona had just played Bayern Munich 3 days ago, and although they won, the victory wasn't an easy one. Barcelona were away, having not beaten Real in their last 5 encounters, and the Galacticos were on a 40-game unbeaten streak in La Liga. All the numbers, all the stats pointed to one thing: a Real Madrid victory. And to make things worse, Barca had to deal with Mbappe, a player who had been haunting them since his days in PSG. This was the former World Cup winner's first El Clasico, and he didn't plan on losing, and definitely not to a 17-year-old. But this is the same 17-year-old who had faced 3 of Madrid's players when Spain knocked out France in the Euro semi-finals a few months ago. If there's one thing Lamine Yamal wasn't, it was afraid. Even in a stadium like Santiago Bernabéu, with the roof sealed and over 85,000 fans cheering for his downfall, he wasn't shaken, but it wouldn't be till kickoff that the real showdown would start. And it would look like Real Madrid would break the deadlock first. Mbappe was in a threatening position, but with the flag raised offside, and Barcelona could breathe a sigh of relief. Minutes later, Yamal would find himself face to face with Lunin and Madrid's centre-backs chasing him. The pressure would cause him to shoot the ball poorly and let Lunin catch it easily. Yamal would later regret not scoring because not long before the half-hour mark, Mbappe found the back of the net, but luckily the goal would be ruled offside. Barca couldn't believe their luck. If there was a time to strike, it was now. The first half ended goalless, but the second half wouldn't be as boring. 10 minutes in, Lewandowski broke the deadlock for good this time, and before Real Madrid could adjust to being a goal down, he doubled the lead. But the game was far from over. There was still over 40 minutes left in the game, and half an hour in Santiago Bernabéu can feel like forever. But here's the thing, Yamal wasn't involved in those 2 goals. It had seemed as if the prolific teenager had succumbed to the intimidation of playing in Madrid's home stadium. He wasn't new here, but perhaps he wasn't as ready as he thought he was. Or was he just waiting to be the one to bury the hatchet in this game? 20 minutes passed with nothing to show for it, just back and forth football with unbelievable chances squandered. With every ticking, Real Madrid became more agitated to get back in the game, and that has played against Los Blancos know that sometimes all they need is 5 minutes to change the tide of things. Yamal, on the other hand, seemed like he would have to settle for doing the bare minimum to ensure his team's victory. But this didn't sit right with him. If he was going to be a star, then he would have to prove it by stepping up in games like this, against opponents like this. He just wanted a chance again at the goal, and in the 76th minute, it came. Rafinha latched onto a long ball from Ter Stegen and drifted across the 18-yard box before laying it off for Yamal. But here's the problem. The pass was heavy, and it landed on Yamal's right foot. Mendy knew he couldn't let Yamal move to his left to shoot with his strong foot. That's when Yamal decided to roof the ball with his weak foot. There was little Lunin could do but see the ball fly past him. Yamal had made it 3-0. Lewandowski's brace was like a dagger to Madrid, but Yamal's goal ensured that there was no way Los Blancos were coming back into the game. It's moments like this that stars are made, and Yamal had just proved that he might be the brightest of them all. But his goal wasn't what hurt Madrid fans the most, it was what he did after. Lamine Yamal trotted to the corner flag and signalled for the fans to calm down. Choosing this celebration was not an accident. This was the same celebration Cristiano Ronaldo did when he scored against Barcelona at the Camp Nou over 10 years ago. Yamal wasn't just celebrating his goal, he was sending a message to Madrid and its fans. He's not scared of them, he doesn't care about the greats that came before him. He's the main man now, and all the attempts to try to intimidate him only fueled him. 85,000 fans were stunned and silent at what they had just witnessed, a teenager in one of the scariest stadiums to play in Europe. Yamal turned his back to the fans and pointed at his name so they could know who was responsible for their misery. In the last 10 minutes of the game, Barcelona still added a goal courtesy of Rafinha, but that goal felt like kicking an already dead body. It was Yamal's goal that had stolen every ounce of hope from Madridsters in the stadium. This was Madrid's first loss of the season, and this defeat meant they were now 6 points behind Barca. But this loss didn't just hurt their title chances, it bruised their egos badly. Mbappe made headlines for being offside a record 8 times. And as for Yamal, what could the media do aside from sing praises about a kid who had silenced 85,000 fans in their own stadium? This game wasn't just a monumental match, it was a canon event. It set the tone for the Barca-Madrid rivalry for the rest of the season. The next time these two teams met, Barcelona still came out on top in a 7-goal game, with Yamal featuring on the scoresheet again. The third time that season these two giants met was in the United States for the Copa del Rey final. Yamal didn't score, but he set up Ferran Torres for the equaliser, which took the game to extra time where they won it. And when the Catalan side hosted Los Blancos for the return leg in La Liga, Lamine Yamal ensured Barca were still in the game despite Mbappe's hat-trick. Yamal played against Real Madrid 4 times that season and scored 3 goals and registered 2 assists. Real Madrid were not the monsters that he had to face. He had become the nightmare that Carlos Ancelotti's men had to live with. What made his victories against Real Madrid more rewarding was the fact that on 2 occasions he denied them silverware. He had won both the battles and the war. But the conflict between Spain's 2 biggest teams is far from over. Given what he did, the boos from inside Santiago Bernabéu will be louder than before. If he was loathed before, he was now hated more than ever. A slight moment of weakness is all it takes for his haters to rejoice. When Yamal silenced the entire stadium that night, he had invited more pressure and scrutiny on himself. Now, the one thing the world wants to know is how long he can keep opposition fans quiet.